the school, so.
Make sure she puts stickers on it. You'll wake up and the mail polish on it, Dad. All right. That break was a little longer. I think we're ready to go into session, right? That break was a little longer because we wanted to have Dawn be able to have a few moments to put together. Councilwoman Diglio had asked for some historical information about the rut. And so you see that at this point?
Yeah, right here.
So it's like one of those trend lines that it moves up and down, but not with enough to make it more than flat. So, you know, but thank you for putting that together. All right. So, Tom, we want to come back to you and go right into DPW.
I have a few things I want to go over. First, good news is we recorded Tom's presentation. The bad news is there's no audio, so we're going to do French subtitles for his audit presentation.
For Jason, perfect.
Because it didn't record his audio, but, you know, it is what it is. Jim corrected that remotely. So that's the first thing. Second thing, on the council salaries, I had discussed the 4,000 and the 3. Upon further review of the other towns, we're just going to do 4,000 across the board.
Yeah. So
rather than differentiate, we're going to kind of follow the Hardiston model, which they do 5,000 across the board. I think 4 is reasonable for our budget, and unless you guys really think there should be a differentiator,
so Tom and
I would just keep it flat.
As we know, there's not been an increase for many, many, many years, or a marginal one, and we've been kind of watching what the other municipalities do. As you know, Hardiston is a very similar budget, very similar model, definite same form of government. So, you know, in the budget that's been presented, what page was it, Tom?
Yeah, under the council salaries, originally we had 4,000 for the mayor and 3,000 for the council, but since, you know, there's an equal opportunity for all of you to become mayor technically, we're just going to go with the flat model, if that's okay, and just do the 4,000.
What page? Just page 20?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and, you know, it's split between water, sewer, and current, so, you know, we'll make the adjustments, but I just think that's fair to all 5 of you rather than, but as long as you guys are okay with that, I think that is that's my recommendation anyway.
Thoughts?
I'm in support of the recommendation.
Yeah, I think it's fair to everybody. All right, so we'll make that one change. Second change we're going to make.
Well, the biggest question is the differential in the mayor.
Yeah, I think we all try to equal opportunities to what we're doing, so.
Okay.
All right, so I'll make that change. No net impact on the total budget. And then the second, we're going to move the scanning project for the planning department. We're going to defer that. So I'm going to take the $55,000 out of the budget.
So look at your capital improvement fund.
Yeah, the CIF sheet, just because I know there was some concern about that. So we're going to work on the retention schedule and clearing out some files before we invest in that project. But the question I have is the $55,000 technically was coming out of the budget. So would you like that to go towards debt payments?
I would like it to go towards debt payments.
Just because that seems to be the priority right now, and that's a good chunk of change that we could put towards debt somehow.
Since the budget's already very strong, I'm in support of debt payments.
Yeah, I mean,
if it wasn't, we were looking at a significant increase, I would say take it off, because it's a tax.
It's a tax point. I was just going to say, I mean,
it's almost a full
supposed to
point.
be a tax point, right? If we were looking at more than what we're looking at, but I think taking that big chunk and putting it as debt is a smarter,
All right, so
smarter long-term plan.
all right, so Dawn and I will rework some numbers.
Yeah, I think that's good, yeah, I think that's good.
Okay. All right, so then next we'll jump to page 27. We have Public Works, we got Adam and Rick, we got Michelle for Rec. So we're going to kind of combine the two, so we'll do Public Works and Recreation, and then, is Joe Carr coming later?
Yes.
All right, so then
Should
we,
be here in like 5.
yeah, when Joe comes, and then we have the 2 engineers should be ready for water and sewer. All right, so same as last time. If there's any questions, if not, we'll go through. But are there any questions on page
Adam, Rick,
27?
being here on Saturday morning. Rick, we haven't seen you in a while. It's good to see you. Adam, I like your backpack. Okay, so we're going to start on page 27.
27.
Well, so actually, let me take a step back for a second while we're looking at those. This is always a good opportunity is to update the council on how things are going, you know, how the year was, things wet, right? No Thanksgiving water break, so that was okay. But overall, from DPW's perspective,
I mean, it was, like I said, wet, so we had a lot of hard damage. We got it down to the panels and drives up a little bit. Storm drain system took quite a toll this year. We got a lot of repairs we got to go into for this year. But, I mean, as far as regular maintenance wise, it was a decent year. I mean, we didn't have any issues. Snow was really low, yeah.
How's the crew? How's the team?
Microphone.
They've actually been, as of late,
No.
they've been good.
Thank
They've been, I'm sorry, they've been getting along better than they have in a very long time recently, so it's been running pretty smooth.
Everybody's feeling okay,
Yeah.
and the other guys are doing it, coming along under your guys' leadership. Okay. And Michelle, thank you for being here as well. I know that you were just coming in to rec and whatnot, but as we go through anything that you want to discuss as well, feel free. Not just about the numbers. All right. My colleagues on the council, any questions under buildings and grounds?
I have a question. Going into the spring, summer, are we going to be hiring in this budget some part-time help for the road department to do like a lawn mowing?
We're gonna look into that for the summer, for like
Okay,
seasonal,
that's
yeah.
what I'm looking for.
Yep.
Summer help.
Yeah, for summer.
Any other questions on 27? Okay.
If not, the next one is page 38.
Okay, the 2019 request, the numbers in the columns don't appear to, oh, wait a minute, I see where the bottom number went, under the hurricane. The salaries, under regular,
Yeah,
We
just look at the total,
and then the hurricane on the other end,
Hey,
is
Fred.
that where the money went in? So, because it equals out pretty much to the 533,885.
she's just asking why the 408 is in that bottom one.
Yeah,
Right.
actually, the one is one contractual unit, and the bottom number is another contractual unit, so for purposes of when we get to the real budget, they'll both be in that first line item.
They both did, because I was
Yeah.
gonna say, how did the salaries go from here to here? Such a big decrease, I'm like, that's not the way it normally.
Yeah, no, it's just,
And it's a fund? What is the, why is that
When Jen gives me salaries, she does it by contractual union, non-union, DPW, whatever. So they were entered that way. Normally, by the time you get this, I've combined them, but that, they weren't combined as of
yeah,
yet.
it
They'll
should just be, it should be in the top,
Okay.
that's all.
So, you guys didn't use all your education and training budget last year, I'm assuming just because with staff and people out, trying to cover to get, continuing ed or training was probably hard to be able to staff. But we're looking at increases here. Do we have some things already on the calendar and the schedule that we're looking at in 2019?
Yes, we're going to be sending someone for their CWM classes,
Okay,
and if you'll see later on the water sewer side, we're going to send someone for the water classes, so
Okay.
both education's got to do this. Who's going to go for the water? Jason Hagerman. He's been going up to the lake and doing some jacks, so he's been kind of doing a lot of the water stuff, so he's expressed interest in going, so we're going to roll with it.
yeah, I think the more people that are fully educated about.
Well, it takes a long time, many years to get those certifications.
Mhm.
So he's young, so it's a long time to be able to do it.
Storm drain repair, overages in 17 and 18. Are you comfortable with that number that you requested, or do you think that there's a need for more?
I think I'm more comfortable with it this year because we also have a capital line item for basin and stuff like that to repair, so we have a couple big projects we have lined up, and a lot of it's going to be that. So what about pavement? Like, do we have, is that under, well, is that under roads, or is that under? Yeah, no, we usually take that under the street materials, and we take that of any account we can. I think we took a lot of the traffic materials, we took a lot out of last year when we went over the Glenview. And I know you guys do, between you guys and Harold's office, or some type of mechanism for rating the streets, right? Although it's not called like a full all-out street rating summary like some towns do. But you guys have like prioritized streets? Well,
On a rotation basis.
we do, in a way. We just try to kind of patch whatever we can as we're going. And if we get a road that's really bad, we do request a Herald Ads be the ones that's thrown on the list. And as far as I think that we had to do something like that before we got British down the street and we got into it. Do we own a milling machine? It's a small one. It's a small
Does the
one.
paving machine work?
The milling machine we have now, we're milling 18 inches, it's not for milling a road.
It's not for milling a huge
it's
road, it's for
milling
much
a-
key in.
Keys, stuff like that.
So
Do you know how to
key-
operate one if you rent one, or do you?
Yeah, you do.
You know how, you could operate a larger one?
What I'm getting at is, do we need to be, can we be paving more streets without going out to capital improvement fund? If the streets are easy, if it's curb to curb, if it's, not significant grade, is there something that we can do here operationally to pave streets with our labor, our machines which we own, except for milling machines? Is this, it doesn't happen this year, this is.
Yeah, I think we could look into it for next year, sure. Why not?
Because I think we have, sounds like we have 90% of the equipment.
Yeah, right.
That was a purchasing paper.
Yeah.
It's actually road paper that we purchased.
I know, you could pave like a 10-foot wide strip or 12, right? 12. You pave a road in 2 passes.
Yeah.
That's how we
Right,
did
so if
Plainfield.
Yeah, so-
While we're doing that, I know in the past, we've also looked at the water pipes
Oh, yeah.
on the different
Yeah.
streets.
Yeah,
rather
now we
than-
have this whole mechanism.
Now we have all the
Now we
data.
have the
Yes.
mechanism that we can tell what's going on with the water pipes, so we know what we have to and not have to do there.
If we didn't own all the equipment except one critical piece, and I'm not advocating for buying it, I'm advocating for renting it. Because,
Yeah, this is a lot of maintenance.
yeah, you don't, that's something you don't wanna own. If we could do it, asphalt's not that expensive when you buy it raw, when you get it put down, and that's where all the
Well, it's all the prep work. It's all the
Mm.
milling, it's all the.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we do that next year. We we'll go through the list of the streets, we see which one we want to work on, and
Simple ones, you don't need a street,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
just to do Cedar Street or something like that, but.
Yeah, but like New Hampshire and Palmer, all that.
yeah, sure. Yeah, those are big.
Roads like that, they're easy to,
Yeah.
we don't have a big enough crew to do like Trinidad or Stewart.
No.
Right.
But all the other roads, there's no reason we can't do that and save money.
Yeah, let's do that starting next year.
And that in the past, I think.
Good suggestion. If nothing else on 38, we'll switch gears to snow, page 39.
I do have to say, when Snowmageddon hit in November, and I was stuck on 206, I received a call from the governor's office to see how things were in Newton. I proceeded to tell him I have not been to Newton yet because I've been sitting on one of your roads for 2 hours and haven't gone but a mile. But what I can tell you is that there are county, state, and federal, or county, state, and town roads in the town of Newton, and the town of Newton roads are passable. And it's because I was getting updates from you guys and Tom and Kenny and others that I know that you guys don't have control over what the state does and doesn't do, or even county.
Yeah,
for
they
that.
slow us down, because there's so much traffic on the road, you could get it all
That's
over
exactly it.
easily, but once they pass, there's.
Yeah, so, and I know that you guys got done probably 11 a.m. the next morning, and by 2 p.m. we had a water main break, and we were back out until 11 p.m. Councilman Diglio and I were on site
Oh,
with you.
yeah.
So, it's, season's not over, but I just wanted to recognize the fact that you guys have already put in a lot of time, and in our reaction, your guys' reaction to what happened in November was far different than the states and the county, so we appreciate that. All right, back to page 39. Any questions about the snow removal? And look at the amount charged for meals, Sandy, that's because you bake brownies and bring them out to the guys all the time.
Yeah, saves us a lot of money, Sandy.
Saves us a lot of money.
Thank you, Sandy.
Rick takes the whole tray right into his own truck, right?
I hope you got them last week. Send them over.
I don't have any questions here. No.
And then, next one, page 40.
So this is just a, I guess a conversation at some point, but our recycling center and the materials that we take up there, plastic, paper, all that kind of stuff. I've just heard some grumblings about, some of the town and some of the states like not being able to take all of the same plastic materials anymore, that some towns are only going to cardboard and
Glass.
glass. Are we kind of looking down the line? Do we foresee any issues or?
Big bulk plastic, big bulk plastic.
Yeah, we stopped it, so
We
we
haven't
take all that.
stopped taking like the old plastics and stuff. We haven't.
You
This is
guys
our
have-
transfer station in Green.
It's in Andover, where we take our stuff, but all the bulk, big bulk plastic, they don't accept that anymore, so we don't accept that.
That's more like
What, pipes and slides and?
I don't know,
You know, like totes and stuff like that, the big plastic totes and stuff,
Yeah.
we used to be able to take all that, and they don't accept none of that anymore, so
Okay.
we had to stop taking big bulk
They want
plastic.
bottles.
As far as your normal plastic,
You know, bottles, stuff like that.
Food
it's all
stuff, things like that,
But
there's
none of the
no-
big
no-
bulk plastic, they don't accept them.
I asked this the other day, I don't know if you were able to get an answer on it. Are they, do we get paid for these, is there tipping fees that we get paid for bringing stuff there or no?
I think there's a
Recycling.
I forget what the contract is.
Certain thing it,
Some
it's for,
some did that, yeah.
other stuff they charge us for, so it
Yeah.
like equals out. Like the glass and cans, we pay them, but the cardboard they pay us for, so that's all.
Not a lot. it's-
Could somebody find that out?
Yeah, there's a I think there's a contract with possibly signed.
Because you said you didn't know if we were getting paid for it, and I'm under the understanding, we're dropping off, whatever, 100 tons of glass a year, or plastic, or whatever it is.
Yeah, Adam.
Excuse me, Tom, Jenny did look up something you had to put on on that, you told me.
Oh, yeah, the paper we do get paid for, but sometimes it's for like a whole year, and it's like $700 for the whole year. But that, like they said, we're paying for, it's kind of equals out, but we.
So they have an account, they don't want to actually pay out, so they'll keep it as long as possible.
See what the net is at the end of the year. So you haven't heard anything though about coming changes in the next, 3 to 5 years about what they will or won't accept? Okay.
I think we were talking about the landfill, 2060 is the estimated.
Will they have to cap the landfill?
2060 has been extended to.
Yeah, they've extended
I thought it was extended to 2030, not 20, because originally it was gonna, it was
2020.
2020, and then it was, that was in 2010 and everything, so it's 2060.
Is it?
So, I think they extended it twice, and the first one was.
Then they just made it higher and higher and
Yeah,
higher.
they spent an extension to go another 50 feet
Higher.
on the original first two.
Okay.
Next page, 43. Recreation.
Michelle. And everything's pretty
Michelle, how are you liking your new role?
Interesting. I still have a lot to learn, but it's very interesting. I'm enjoying the time I've spent so far with the team. The pool is very interesting, and the fields are, I think I could right now be a new pool because they're pretty much underwater. But
How's the rec committee? I know that we just appointed a member,
Tito.
probably one in the fall as well.
Yeah, you just did.
How's the rec committee been to work with?
they're great. I've actually met with them twice already because I attended the December meeting with Debbie
Mhm.
just to introduce myself and get to know them. And then we met in January. We have a lot of events that we want to put together and move forward with. Just
Do you have a date for the spring senior luncheon, by any
Yes,
chance?
that would be March 24th. We also have a date
At the high
for-
school, right?
Yes, it would be at the high school, and we also already have a date for the Easter egg event,
Okay.
which would be Friday, April 12th, that will be taking place at the high school cafeteria as well, because the firehouse apparently was too small last year. The event was that popular, so we were able to secure the cafeteria at the high school, and then.
That's the Easter egg coloring, right?
The coloring
Okay.
event, correct, and then the Easter egg hunt would be the following day, on the 13th, that morning at, which is 2:00.
That worked out well last year.
The Easter egg hunt there,
Mm-hmm.
instead of the ball fields in the back.
Yeah, because it was on turf, it was, I mean, it was nice, it was good. I would just have to good weather. Okay, good, thank you for those dates. All right, questions for Michelle on page 43?
Go to 46.
So even with the conditions of the fields, with how wet everything was this year and some maintenance, we still think that the maintenance, the equipment maintenance allocation number is still okay? Because that's actual physical maintenance of the equipment as opposed to like fields, right?
Tom, you had some interesting ideas for the fields, is that still just, it's still like concept?
Yeah, and we'll talk within the capital about the fields and stuff too.
No other questions? Okay.
All right, so before we jump to the big topic, which is going to be the pool, you have a couple capital items, Adam, maybe just go through, and then we'll spend the rest of the time on the pool.
So pretty much our two capital projects that we're looking to do this year, one of them is obviously pipe-based and stormwater, that's to help us fund a couple large projects that we're going to need to rip up pipe and put new pipe in the ground and add a couple new basins, places and things like that, so that's pretty much where that one is, and then the skid steer, which is a machine that we use. I'll let Rick get into it a little bit more. He's more familiar with the machine than I am, but we use it a lot for everything. It's, right now, the one we have is in 2005. It's been here longer than I have. It's old. It needs a lot of repairs at this point.
What kind of, it's Bobcat, S-175.
It's a track, so
4,000
it's wheels right now. We're looking,
Tire.
once we go over,
It's a tire machine. Looking at a track machine.
yeah, I think it needs $5,000, $6,000 worth of repairs. I'm going to get back up. It's,
You said how many hours are on it?
4,000.
And what's the usual life?
6,000, 7,000, but we use our stuff for a lot of things. It's used for unloading all of our block, all the deliveries to water and sewer, is all the valves get unloaded with it. The cameras get loaded with it, all the sanders are put on and off the trucks with it, all the catch basins are done. Has the milling machine on it, the broom goes on it for the milling machine. So it's used more than what an average person would use it for.
so you got all the attachments and stuff?
We have a milling machine for it, we have a broom for it, but with the new machine, we're looking into a new milling machine, because our milling machine is, got almost 4,000 hours on it also. We're looking at 3,600 hours on that machine
So we
already.
can order, it's on the slide track, the milling machines, we can bring it over again. It doesn't even.
The parts for it now are obsolete, that's the problem. For our old milling machine, the parts are obsolete.
Are you looking at getting another Bobcat?
No,
Oh, you're not?
no.
Why?
Because Bobcat used to be right down in Necon, now they're down towards the city.
Yeah.
So we want to stay local and go for the Kubota, because we need Kubota parts, we just go across town, get Kubota
Yeah,
parts.
so I just know Bobcat has the most attachments, don't they?
The Kubota's got a lot.
Yeah, and they're interchangeable.
That's what I was just gonna say, are they interchangeable with what you have
Yes.
now, the attachments?
You can
Yes.
rent a lot of attachments.
Yes, we have done that in the past, rented like postal day or stuff, we have a lot of post work to do.
I had a project where we rented the brush hog for the Bobcat. There was like two.
That was another attachment we were.
The brush hog,
Yes.
they rent.
That was actually getting along because we bundled a couple of the prices really wasn't that bad. But we're looking to trade the one in
So what's the 75 cover?
It's gonna cover, well, after the trade-in, it's gonna cover machine and
Numerous
numerous
attachments.
attachments.
Oh, numerous, I was just
Different
gonna
than the
say.
attachments you have now because you can use the attachments.
Correct.
Okay.
Minus the milling, which obviously.
How much is just the skid steer?
Just the skid steer alone was, is 59 and change.
That expensive?
But then Kubota, for a package deal, is giving you a price break on the attachments if you do it all?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And I mean, it's on one of the co-ops too, so the price came down to the co-ops.
Yeah, and there's no more, there's no machine out there that's more versatile.
Mhm.
And with this, a little bit more power than what we have now.
Safety.
So it'll come with a bucket, or you need forks for it?
We have forks from the old one.
Yeah, they switch over.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And our broom from the old one goes on to the room also.
We were talking about getting grapple buckets.
So the one we have is about 15 years old, right? Is that kind of the same lifespan on the newer ones? Do we
I would
think?
assume, I'm not sure because we never had a track machine before. A track machine is more tolerable than a tire machine.
Okay.
Because on a tire machine, all the attachments on the front, every time you turn, everything's on the front two wheels, puts pressure on everything. On a track machine, it's the whole machine basically. And that's the problem with the old one. The wheel bearings were starting to go and the housings where the bearings go, starting to oblong.
Yeah.
So all of that would have to be totally replaced. And in my opinion, the machine's not worth putting that kind of money in. Being that
Right, you said
old.
about $5,000 or $6,000, right? So I just did a
That's for us
calculation.
doing the work, if we're capable of doing the work.
Yeah, I mean, at 75,000 over a 15-year lifespan, you're looking at 5,000 a year. If we have to put 5,000 or 6,000 in it now, you know, it's not really extending.
Because you're still talking 2,000 buy machine, 4,000 hours.
Do they make an attachment that grabs horizontal pipes, like for the main pipe, you're putting it into a whole,
No, but
A trench.
they make a attachment goes on like a small crane that the clamp would go onto the pipe. But we already have that for our excavator, set pipes with the excavator. We
Yeah, I was
purchased that
just
when we
wondering.
did Marion
I've
Avenue.
seen that used.
yeah, you see it when they drop the,
Yep.
pipes on it, when they're doing like gas lines.
Yeah, we purchased that when we did Marion Avenue for the main, and then we used it on Maple, Howard, Oak, all that. So we already have that attachment.
Yeah, you guys know what you need, I mean, it's a very useful tool, and you can buy it from.
No,
Well, and we've said over the years too, whether it's fire department equipment or DPW equipment, you know, the equipment that we buy, if it's most versatile, right, can be used in lots of different ways, or it's, you know, the machinery that's used the most, or since we have the institutional knowledge in terms of the operators to use it, I mean, I feel like we're getting, you know, good lifespan, good kind of bang for the buck for it. So, yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, so the first one, just going back up one, the 150, is that a targeted basins that you have to fix, certain amount of sidewalk? You know, that's basically the incident.
Well, the road improvement one?
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't gone over that one yet.
Yeah, that wasn't the one.
No, that's Plainfield Avenue, the 150. That's the Plainfield Avenue project.
Yeah.
the one
The
with.
road improvements, resurfacing, curbing, and sidewalks, that's all Plainfield.
Yeah, that's Plainfield.
150.
Yeah, the only other one for them is the basin stormwater.
Maybe it's just the one that-
And that's not done in-house, that's gonna be contract.
What, the basins?
No, the road improvements.
Oh, the road, yes, correct.
But the pipes and basins.
That's all.
Any other questions on the capital expenditures for DPW?
Also recreation.
While
We're
we're
gonna go
on,
to that next, I just wanna,
while we're on capital, let's talk about the fields, and then we'll save the best for last. So I have 60,000 in the budget. Looking at some improvements. We're looking at reviewing where we are with the fields with the 60,000, because I know we have some issues with the current condition and where we're going in the future. So I don't know if you want to speak to the fields in general or any specificity.
Any of our fields near the swamp is sinking in its ledge. So again, there's gonna be, in order to make them playable for people, hopefully this year, especially baseball, those are gonna be repairs, maybe topsoil or overseeded. You know, I mean, we'll know better once spring gets here and we see if it dries out the lawn.
It's that bad.
Yeah. If you go out and walk, especially if you go out and walk on Baby Fields, I've never seen how much water, and on that field for that long time, like it's
The water's all there too. The fence behind the baby.
I mean, we've always had a problem with left field with rains, but it's extended all the way over to right field, constantly, it hasn't dropped at all.
okay, so I know that, you know, from a climate perspective, it's been wet or whatever, but it feels like that this is speaking to a bigger issue of just happening over time, that the field's sinking, it's getting closer to the swamp, or the swamp's getting closer to the field, right? So I think decisions have to be made. Are we investing resources to try to level out a little bit and extend the life, or are we looking at kind of reconfiguring the spaces all at Memory Park?
Well,
Right.
what the suggestion I have that I had talked to you guys about is hiring a consultant from Suburban, because they specialize in fields, if you remember, with their presentation. So I'm going to be recommending that to you. If the budget's approved as is, that we'll have one of their engineers, because I think we need somebody who specializes in fields. Because if you look at, this year is one thing. If you look at next year, Babe Ruth field improvements, 400,000.
Right.
Before we make that kind of investment, I think we need to know what we're dealing with and why, and
Well, that's what I'm
So-
saying. I feel like, doing something this year at the field is a Band-Aid, and when I looked forward,
I don't know if,
it was a big swallow to look at $400,000 in a baseball field.
I think when Debbie was also talking about doing that in there, I believe she also, some of that was also to finish the fencing at the softball field, which does need to be done.
What, part of the 60 or part of the?
Part of the
60.
60.
Yes.
Okay,
It was
so, yeah.
also, besides that, it was also the softball field, she had a permanent fence put in, but I guess she ran out of money to
Yeah,
finish
it's
it, so
partial,
it needs to
so
be finished. And I don't, she was also talking about, was she talking about fencing in the other one as well?
No.
No, okay.
So let's go back then. What's included in the 60?
I think it's also the fence at the softball field.
Everything at the softball field.
Correct. Yes.
So it's basic seasonal field improvements, plus the fencing of the softball field.
Yes.
and engineering.
And okay.
It's all, yeah,
I think she
it's
was-
all encompassing.
She was looking, was there anything else she was-
This soccer, softball, and Babe Ruth.
Was she up to
Something in the future, I'd rather not see in capital, but.
Yeah, but realistically,
Okay, so she was also planning on.
Field improvements.
On the other softball side. On the field, also, the other JV fields, right? She put the ones that are ours, but she was also planning on putting them in the JV field.
Okay, so Michelle, just to recap, these are dugouts, the recreation engineer, the softball field fencing, and then just some general maintenance to all of the fields.
Correct.
Am I missing anything else? So, Tom, if we were able to do that, what's the time frame that we're looking at?
Well, I'm hoping to get a recommendation to you after this budget is approved or at least introduced, and then we'll get the engineer on board to start looking at the Babe Ruth field, because that's the one that we have to focus on. But I won't do anything until this is, locked in, obviously.
Because I know we're about to get there, but we're talking about a potential big price tag on the pool this year and a potential big price tag on the Babe Ruth field next year.
Ooh.
Neither of
Mhm.
them.
What we good about the softball fields is they are considered.
Well, that's
It's just the Babe Ruth deal that we're
Just,
having
it's just
issues.
the lower field is supposed to be separate.
And really for me, it's a safety issue too, right? I mean, that's first and foremost for both our Newton, players, but also the visiting teams and, you know, that's,
They're basically, they're off the field, towards the outfield, trying to catch a pop fly, the drop ball, so it's.
One of the options Adam came up with was to move the pool to the Babe Ruth field.
with a natural water source?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
All right, on that note, let's go to page 45. Michelle has some handouts for you. We need some guidance on the state of the pool. So we have some handouts. So rather than focus too much on 45, because the request is pretty pedantic, I would rather you focus on the bigger issue of where the pool is at, the improvements in the capital budget, and if we're keeping the pool, if we're upgrading the pool, if we're closing the pool. I would suggest don't get lost in the weeds of page 45 because we have bigger issues, right?
Yeah, I didn't have any questions on
You know what I'm
45.
saying? So I'll let Michelle talk about her research, where she's at, and then I'll give you some recommendations and suggestions.
All right, Michelle, it's all you.
When I first came on, in January, I took a full run tour just to take a look, and, I did take some pictures, which you'll see in the packet that I handed out to you, just looking at structural cracks. And there is plaster that's cracking, there's bubbling in the plaster as well, there's water, getting behind the plaster, which I'm thinking that come spring, when the weather breaks, that's just going to break as well. We're not too sure of the extent of the damage after the winter, because we had such hot and cold, temperature fluctuation. So I'm afraid, the plaster will be even further deteriorated at that point. I had, a pool expert come out and just take a look at everything.
Is this the same pool contractors or experts that we've used in the past, or is this?
We have used him in the past. He did the patchwork this past season. So he was familiar with the pool. And he said there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And every time he would step into it, there would be additional cracks in the plaster. So our best bet would be to replaster the entire pool. He further mentioned that the plastering that was done previously was very thin and not the greatest quality, and that's why we're running into the problems that we're running
So that's why I
into.
asked the question. So I had the opportunity to walk the pool before it was filled with water last spring to see directly some of the cracks and issues and tile damage, et cetera, that was going down. So I had asked the questions at that time too. Okay, what do we need to do to get into the season? Because we were like right up against the beginning of the season. And at that point, Debbie said that, you know, we were talking to somebody else that was going to be providing much better service and better work than had been done in the past. So at that point, I said, well, do we have any recourse, or were there guarantees on service or work that we could go back to the charter contractor before to get some of those repairs made? I'm not sure where we kind of settled on any of that, or if there's anything it's kind of, you know, beyond the ability to do anything like that. I mean, Brock and Debbie, we were at this point where we were just trying to get into the season, right, get prepared for the season and try to mitigate any further damages, but also make sure it was safe at the bottom. So, I mean, it looks like from these pictures that it's even a little worse than it was.
Correct. There's a lot of damage to the pool, not just in the plastering. We also have a leak in the pool, in the main valve. So over a course of 3 weeks, Brock informed me we lost 100,000 gallons of water.
That was while the pool was filled.
Correct. The pool was filled, and he was prepping it to close for the season. And over a 3-week period, we lost 100,000 gallons of water because there was a leak in the main valve that needs to be repaired. That's also part of the $2 million
So that's different than the main valve
The
now.
center drain, what do they have to do, save it or something? I'm not sure what they.
Fortunately, I'm
I'd be
looking
interested in
at-
finding out what was done. I specifically remember this capital project, like 3 or 4 years ago. It was 2015-ish era. There was. It was overrun.
You have to check.
Okay, so if we could just get a little.
Yeah,
history
we can
on
check.
that.
Okay, so Michelle, why don't you go ahead with your presentation before we,
So I just took a look at,
Gotcha.
took a look at the numbers, from 2017 and 2018. Our membership did drop in 2018 by 4, it was minimal. We did have an increase in the number of actual residents, that, took advantage of membership. So we
Bless
went
you, sir.
from 56, roughly 56%, of our members being Newton residents up to 67%. Our revenue did decrease. I'm questioning the swim lessons, that dropped, decrease in swim lessons. Again, unfortunately, I just took over this a month ago, so I'm just going.
yeah, that's a big drop.
Yeah, I'm just going by the numbers that are in the system. Part of it, I was told by my predecessor that we didn't have as many certified lifeguards to teach the swim lessons this year, and then the rain really took a toll on days that we were open at the pool, and the swim lesson timing, they had to cancel a lot of the swim lessons because of that.
So do people pay?
Well, there's also lessons as part of memberships too.
Correct.
So-
Lessons were part of the membership as well.
So the lessons as a standalone monetized option has diminished.
Our salary and wages decreased slightly, again, because of the rain. We didn't have as many man hours to pay for, because we were closed, for a good part of the season due to the rain. Improvements, went up. We had that $8,000, replastering, that occurred, well, the patchwork, the Band-Aid that was put on the pool so that we can open in 2018, which then creates a deficit. We're essentially in the hole, when we take our revenue versus our, expenses.
So-
How do these deficits run historically though? Like what are we looking at for 16 and 15? Because quite frankly, I can't remember last time we really looked at.
It's never runs out. It's never been
Doesn't
flat.
Right, that's why I'm
From
trying to.
what I've been told, I really looked at 17 and 18 because that's what I had access to. Unfortunately, the system that we use currently, the Easy Facility system, wouldn't provide me any additional information.
Dawn,
past
do you
that.
know? Do you know?
I just did this on my own, I wasn't,
I know we do a little bit of
I don't know if
marketing.
it helps or not. It's
Probably more marketing would increase membership, I would think, you know, social media.
I'm looking at the, I'm
No,
looking at
I'll get into that next.
what it runs.
you would have to look at the one total and then minus the other total.
Where our Google
Somebody
rating
could get that for you.
is actually, pretty high, we are 4.5, and, from my understanding, the daily admission is very popular. As you can see, we brought in almost $30,000 in daily admission, and we've had, people that come from Harlem, Patterson, very far away to come to our pool. So, I don't think it's necessarily the marketing aspect of it.
Yeah, that's 5,980 individual $5 admissions, and I know there's a delta between the senior rate, but it's a lot of like walk-in people that aren't paying for the membership, but they're just paying the $5 a day.
All right, so let me give you the rest of the story. I'm gonna paint the picture like I'm Bob Ross, okay? Okay. So here are your options, and we're gonna cut to the chase here because this is a huge item. The pool is either a break-even operation or it's a money loser. Your membership is about 100, 2/3 of that is Newton people, and this is a town of 8,000 residents. Your options with this $250,000 expenditure, do you want to close the pool for this season and fix it, get it to where we need it to be for 2020? Do you want to do the immediate fix, we're going full bore, $250,000 so that it's ready to go for the 2019 season? Do you want to permanently close the pool because we're talking about 100 people that are joining? Or would you also entertain, and this is kind of my curveball option, since the Newton taxpayers are the ones who have paid $1.5 million in the last 15 years for this pool, make the pool free for Newton residents. They're the ones that are paying for the capital improvements and drive the business towards concessions, swim lessons, the swim team, parties and activities, recognizing that the taxpayers in the town have been subsidizing this pool for decades.
Yeah, so that's the bottom line question, right? So we're talking about these revenues that come in from memberships and the pool and stuff, but the reality is every single taxpayer in the town of Newton's been paying for this amenity, right?
Yeah, $1.5 million since 2004, and that's not including interest and
For O&M and capital.
that's capital alone.
And it's hard too because
Not
if
interest.
if the pool was covered, this would be a moneymaker for us because every single school.
Operations.
If the pool wasn't closed, it would be a moneymaker for us because every single school in the county is looking for pool space, right? That's not the reality, because we'd be talking about a whole other number. So it comes down to what the public and the council's appetite is for maintaining this amenity, is really what it comes down to. Could we explore additional revenue opportunities, like you said, beef up the concessions? Is there money to be made with, other swim teams? Can you promote it more for birthdays and things like that where you're charging different rates? You're talking about a completely different business operating model if it's now an asset to make money, not just off of memberships and Newton residents, right? So now it's a complete change in the way we're doing business, quite frankly.
Yeah, it's a complete rethinking of what is the asset. You're making it more experiential and get away from the membership model, which is, it's not working. We sell 100 memberships a year and you have 8,000 residents, and so the math doesn't add up. Corey's looking at covering the pool. It's $1 million proposition. The layout of the pool and the building don't really lend to a traditional bubble. I mean, we've already looked into this. So if we can't afford $250, we certainly can't afford $1 million bubble. So that enclosing it in the year-round option is not an option. You're not going to get other towns to buy into the pool, like say, well, maybe you want Greene or Frieden or other towns to jointly own. If this were any other department, I'd be laying off people like I did in the past. If this was the parking authority, we would be changing rates like we did in the past. Mm-hmm. How much more money? And I'm not, I'm not telling you what to do, but I have to manage the finances, and I see this as a pretty significant cost that's benefiting a very, very small group of residents in this town. So the way you get around that is you open it up to anybody who lives in Newton proper, and they get the blessing of using the pool because they're paying for it.
That? They show their driver's license when they come in?
Why not? I'm not saying to do it. I'm just saying if 8,000 people are spending $250,000 on this amenity that's open 9 weeks, maybe 8,000 people should have the benefit of using it. Now, we know not everybody's going to use it, but that's a lot of money to spend on 100 people. Because membership, and Helen does fundraising for a living.
Well, 100 memberships.
But you know what I'm saying? Like the bulk of this should be memberships, right? That's your moneymaker because there's no guarantee they use it, right? It's the money in, they pay for the season. I don't care if they come once or 30 times. People know how to beat the system. They do the daily admission. The weather's nice, they come. The weather's suspect, they don't. The weather's bad, we close early.
That's what I do.
So the 10-week window sometimes could be 9 or 8. The 8 or 10 hours a day could be 5 or 6. You can't make it. The way it's structured logically from a business standpoint, it's always destined to be a money loser with this model in place. So And the answer isn't change the membership structure, because we did that.
Right.
And it's
We already
not
looked at the pricing. We
discount
already
it
did that.
for Newton residents. We've done that, and we've done government rate and all that. We've done all of that. So you need to blow it up literally or figuratively. You really have to change the thinking about what this pool is. It's either got to be a commodity for all, or it's a commodity for none. But it can't be a commodity for the few. We can't afford it.
Right.
Not when we're looking at the Babe Ruth field, replacing 802 next year for 750. There's other needs that this town has that benefit more than 100 people. And I like the pool. I'm not saying, but like Michelle looked into maybe a splash pad. Do you fill in the pool and do you do a splash pad? So it's a different amenity, different twist, different audience, younger crowd, expand the utilization of the pavilion. So, you do have other choices, but covering it and making it a year-round facility is cost prohibitive for a town that doesn't
Sure.
have that level of
And
financial.
again, if we were building this from scratch, I'd probably have a different opinion on that, because then now you're looking at a completely different revenue model. But that's what I'm saying. I think, you have the new pavilion, there's that other open space when you first come up. And I feel like it's underutilized under the current business model, right, of just purely memberships. And probably the last 2 summers have spent more time up there than I have in the last 20 years, right? So, this is the bigger discussion, right? And it's almost bigger than this budget hearing. But the reality is we're faced with a capital improvement expenditure that we need to make a decision on.
Would you propose, I want to get back to the 250. Would you have a professional or somebody write specs and send this out to bid?
I think,
we would need to do this by.
and it's a bid, so low bidder could be Johnny on the Spot, Pool Inc., and there's guarantees after the fact that there's an issue, but you can't guarantee who the vendor will be doing the work technically, right? Because we're going out for contract. So, yeah, we could reach out to Suburban, or we could work with Harold's office and get a couple people in on, and Sean, our QPA, making really solid bid specs, airtight, but we're bumping up against the clock too. We only it's February, but it's around the corner, and that's why I said, are we doing all these things?
It needs to start immediately.
Well, that's why.
Well, that's
what
why
options
we're having
is
this
close it for
conversation.
19 and do it over
You want to make this for
20 or do it
2020?
now.
Closes for 19.
Yeah, and
No,
then
that
we
would
add
look
a
at
lot
the
of the
vision.
pool companies that, we spoke with, they're already scheduled for the spring. So
Yeah.
they have advised us, if you're gonna do the repairs, you have to let us know now.
Oh, so we might not even get a good company to come in here. And what you say, do all these repairs, I was originally thinking don't close it because there's that eliminates the continuity in something like this. People are gonna find something elsewhere, but if you open it up and it's free, it's never free, but, nothing's ever free.
Right, so that's different, right? So if you closed it for 19, did the repairs, and then 20, it's no longer membership
A
structure, it's
different
different.
business model, selling, the pavilion at a couple $100 for private events, birthday parties on scheduled dates and stuff like that.
And it's a lot that I'm throwing at you, so you can always think about it for Monday. We have another council meeting, but this is a big decision. It's a significant investment. The capital budget is lean this year on purpose, so that if you did decide, to take the plunge, literally and figuratively, I'm giving you the out. I'm giving you the option to do it. This is the year to do it.
Yeah, because
Once we get past this
forward-
year, Babe Ruth Field and 802 and these other things, you're not going to have this lean a capital budget going forward. So this would be your year to decide to make this type of investment.
Sandy, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, I am concerned that we've had these repairs done in the past several times already. Not just once, but several times. What is the underlying factor that's causing these cracks to begin with, because we've had it repaired several times?
Yeah, but did we have a real repair, or did we have a Band-Aid
And
repair?
a patch.
That's different.
We had
I mean-
Band-Aids, but I agree with Sandy. My sense is, and talking to other administrators and managers, there's something that goes back to, maybe when Rick was here, but in serious, you know what I mean? It's something that goes back years before most of us, and this is just going to be a reoccurring issue. Maybe not, next year, you know what I mean? We might get another few years out of it, and then some, because I don't know if it was the initial construction or it's, I don't know, maybe you have a sense,
In
but.
the 80s and early 90s, it wasn't a plastic pool like it is now. We painted it in April. All it was painted, and then everything was caulked, and then they decided to do the new building. When they decided to do all this plaster and everything,
Was it concrete? Is it concrete?
It's a concrete pool.
Or a gunite?
And it used to be just painted. And then they decided to put this coating and all that over it. That pool flexes. It's on the side of the mountain. There's water, moisture around it constantly. The paint peels, we scrape the paint, wash it down, and we used to paint it. And they decided to do this because they didn't want to paint it no more every year. And it's been ongoing headaches since.
Yeah.
Somebody have a better, I mean, replastering, it doesn't sound like a very good idea, it sounds like crap. Is it
It's
you
a
said it's
concrete
concrete,
pool.
it's not gunite?
No, it's a concrete pool. That's what we used to do, paint it every year.
Is that an option to
It's
take
a
it back?
it was a rubber-based paint that we used.
So why can't you do that? You know,
Yeah, because a thin layer of plaster in
why
the
couldn't
shifting
you
is going
pull all
to just
the
make a
plaster
crack
from-
again.
But that's what, I mean, someone's gonna have to do that assessment.
I don't think.
Engineer's smarter than me, but, I mean, it almost makes sense to take the plaster out, put another layer of concrete on it. and
It might.
Paint it every year.
I don't think we'll get it through into the season, you know what I'm saying? Like, same thing, I'll go back to Suburban or somebody who's an engineer who specializes, not necessarily the company that does the work, obviously, they got skin in the game because they want to do the
Right.
bid, but an outside professional.
Yeah, that's what the county does. Just,
But
if
you-
we were the county, we would have the same person's gonna do the work, write the specs.
Right, yeah, no, we're a little smarter than that, yeah, but serious, you know.
No, no, that's what
But
I'm
that means
saying.
it's probably not gonna be open for this season, and in the end, you still might close it, but I'm just a little leery of this type
There's
of an
no
expense.
way, I have like 10% confidence that that if we were to spend this $250,000 before the start of 2019,
It would still
that
happen.
would be an appropriate fix for the pool.
I
I
agree.
don't have confidence that it would be.
I agree
I
with
don't think
you.
it would be an appropriate use of funds. I think it needs, I don't even know, I mean, maybe more of a professional assessment going back to like what kind of.
I would, well, let's bounce it off. Would you rather put a nominal amount in the budget, or, we took the planning, scanning, take 10,000 or 5,000, and I reach out to Suburban or an engineer who specializes in, pools, and get another set of eyes on it, and
So-
take our time and not throw good money into
So
bed,
this-
because
this-
I
that's
agree
a
with
better
you
idea.
that there's something structural underneath that in 3 years from now, we're going to be having the same conversation, and
I don't
that's,
wanna have
that's,
This is why
I don't either.
This is why I asked what the operating deficits have been for the last couple of years, because forget 2018 that we're sitting at 37, because we had some operating expenses that we hadn't had in previous years. So if the true operating deficit is 15-ish over the last 5 years,
but that's without capital.
right, then I know. We forget the revenues. We're not going to have the revenues this year, but we're not necessarily going to have that operating deficit, because we're not going to have salaries and wages. We're not going to be operating. We're not going to have the chemicals, whatever. Okay. So now you take the season and you have to close it because there's structural issues. But we have now some time to have some accurate assessments done, not the vendors that we've been using. I have questions even about them. And then really look at what the what-if situations are. Because
Yeah.
right now I feel like I don't have enough information
Yeah.
to make a sound
And I don't know,
business
and I don't feel
decision.
like I'm necessarily giving you enough data. I'm giving you the bulk
The
of
data
it,
you
which
have,
is good. Yeah, what we have, but I don't feel like I'm necessarily giving you the best options yet, because I think we need other people that are specialists in this area
Agreed.
to give us some options, and that might take 3 to 6 months of analysis or whatever.
That's
but-
what I'm saying.
but-
I don't know that any of us understand the full scope.
Yeah,
Which is what we've been operating under with all these Band-Aids.
You would need, the specs would need to be done within 3 to 4 weeks. It'd have to go out to bid. That's a
Yeah, the
complete
time frame is-
process. To have a June start for this would be nearly impossible.
I mean, you're looking at 15 weeks.
Not happening.
And we've
I
already
also
been
wanna
told by
know-
contractors that they might not even be able to meet the timeline.
I want to know why the pool is empty right now. Did you take pictures of that recently? The pool has no water in it?
Yeah, they drained it.
They drain it. There's,
I don't own a pool, but as far from what I know about pools, you're not supposed to drain it.
Years ago, we never used to.
You are
You're
not
supposed to bring the water level down. and
only
cover
below the
it, right?
skimmers, because the bearing
Years
pressure
ago,
of
we
the
didn't do
frozen
that.
soil on the outside has nothing to counteract the inward
Pool
force
fluxes.
inward.
Mhm.
You have to leave water in it.
Years ago, we used to bring it down a foot below it.
That's what I'm saying.
And then we used to turn around and put 4x4s and tie them in there, so the ice wasn't solid, it would flex. That's when we used to paint.
Right.
And since it was been plastered, every year now it gets drained. And like Dan said,
What
That's
year,
not-
what year do
that's
we
not the-
plaster it?
I don't.
In Mount
I
Olive,
can't
they
go back
did that
that
one
far.
year to this
90s?
pool in Mount
I'm gonna
Olive,
say,
and
yeah,
the
it's
whole
90s.
thing
No, it was in the 90s.
buckled in, and they had to redo the whole thing.
When they
Started plastering.
plastered it.
It was in the 90s.
So this is where I'm at to bring the conversation forward. I don't feel like we have enough information. I think we need to do some additional due diligence. I don't think that we're in a position to be able to do anything for this season. So my recommendation is that that this 250 number is not a real number, not because of anybody's calculations, but based on what we need to do now. That we're going to have to make the decision that the pool doesn't open this season, and that we take the next 3 to 6 months to figure out what the real issues are and come up with a more concrete plan for remediation or options, and then next best steps.
Don't disagree.
I agree with you.
Absolutely. I'm not interested
I-
in throwing money away at a Band-Aid solution anymore.
I do want
It's
to.
unfortunate for the people that are gonna be disappointed,
It
but
is.
I think we should make a public service
Thank
announcement.
you.
Oh, yeah, no. of
Because I
course.
do wanna
Once we
avoid-
decide that's the,
I do want to avoid the implications of this decision, though, and the negative effects of this, because we not only have, our, the 100 family, or the 100 membership people, right, it's more than 100 because there's families, but we have the swim team considerations, we have,
Yeah.
It's more than just.
it is,
100
but I'd rather be
memberships,
honest
but-
with people
Upfront.
and in the next couple of weeks, get the message out with a press release and some conversations. I'd rather be honest and let people know where we're at, and that it's a very large financial consideration for a town this size. Honesty is the best way to handle
Yeah.
this. We're not hiding anything. I mean, we're in a public meeting, and we're taping this, right? So,
No, and in
it's the
addition to the
truth.
press releases, I'd like to do a letter to the 100 past memberships. I'd like to do a letter to the swim team, because
Yeah.
all of those people and those constituents have to start to make alternate plans.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
understood.
I have a question though, maybe Rick would know. What was the reasoning behind going to plastering it rather than just leaving it as the concrete pool that it was?
I'm not sure.
That's the only thing I don't understand, because.
A decision that was made in the 90s.
Why'd they switch from the concrete to the plaster when they did the building, or like,
Yeah,
or
when they redid the building,
Redid?
that's when they did away with painting, and that's when they did the tile for the swim team.
They did it to make it look
and all
nice.
that. We used to paint all
So
that.
that was like in '04, right? And then
maybe
we had
that
a
was the
problem with
beginning
that
of
contractor,
the beginning of
the
the
work they did.
investments.
It was really like, the contractor.
And we've come full circle
Yeah.
Yeah.
See?
to where I started.
Yes. Like I said, the lines used to be we used to paint it all. The whole crew used to go up there the second week of April. The pool would be pumped down, as it was being pumped down, it was washed and cleaned. And then it was dry, and then we paint the whole pool blue. Wait 3 days, then we taped off and paint all the black lines for the swim team, and the pool was refilled. Only problem we had back then was a little bit of the coating on the top around, it would pop and we'd reseal it. The rest of that pool was concrete, it was painted, it never had tile in that pool, never.
Did you ever have problems with cracks when it was concreted?
No, we had a little, like for the deep end, the pool was like this, then it's L, where it slants down, that gap sometimes, but we just recaulk it and paint it, and the paint we used was like rubberized. When it dried, it was like rubber. So if there was a little crack, it sealed it, that's why we painted it every year. And then that all came to a halt, and then that's when they did the tiles and the plastering and all that. But that was our work for 3 weeks of every,
Yeah.
with the pool, the whole crew, the whole road department out there.
Well, let's.
In good faith, we can't, it's unfortunate that we're gonna disturb some people's summer plans, and the swim team, which I, have a lot of respect for, but.
And the seasonal staff that we hire, I mean, I want a full comprehensive
Yeah, we will.
conversation with
Okay.
everybody.
All right. We'll pull the 250. I'll get some ideas on
Yeah, does
engineering.
everybody agree? Matt?
For seasonal staff, is there things we could offer them, maybe jobs we could offer them?
Garbage.
Completely, no.
No,
Completely
that-
different entity.
Yeah, that was.
You wouldn't have the lifeguards mowing lawns, it's like.
Yeah, that was a
different.
straight pool. So.
Yeah.
All right.
Michelle, are you okay with this?
I'm okay with that. I actually.
Because it changes
feel-
now your scope of work really,
Yeah.
too.
Which, no, I'm comfortable with that because I was concerned safety-wise, with the pool. I know that there were a lot of cuts and scrapes because of the
Yeah.
the cracks in the tiles and the plaster. And, so I'm definitely comfortable with that. And then that would give us time to improve on the services that we will provide at the pool. Whatever we're going to have there in the future, then we can provide more services like birthday parties and, just different functions.
And I would hope that through an assessment, a comprehensive kind of look at, that we could also take some time to develop a business plan around a different operating model.
Maybe we'll take a 2-minute break and then we'll jump into water sewer.
Yeah.
Just gonna take a break.
Okay. How you doing back there, Clary?
That's what I said.
Rock and roll.
All right, we are at 11:36. We still have a lot to get to, so if everybody's ready, we're gonna move back into session. All right.
Do it.
Where we at?
We have a Dawn suggestion, and then I'm gonna walk you through water sewer.
Dawn?
Okay, actually, it's two-part. I wanted to just confirm swimming pool. You will take out the S&W line item, the 63,000, reduce the budget by. Leave the OE in toward contractual or your evaluation.
Taking back to what page we're at again, one more time.
45.
45.
Okay, so.
We're gonna take out the salary and wage, because we're not operating the pool for the summer, but we will leave the operating so that we can put some of that, most of it, towards the actual study of.
Yep,
And they
reallocation.
got the 250.
Yes.
That's capital.
Yeah,
movement,
that's gone. And then I'll start Monday working on a list, you know, I already did it, but in the break, but, you know, I'll work on a letter with Ursula, we'll get it to the proper people, we'll get it out by the end of the week, and we'll let people know what's going on with
Yeah, I
the.
really wanna make sure that this is done right.
Yeah, no,
To
we'll get it out.
staff and everybody. And then, you know, if we were looking for the thoughts on additional summer help elsewhere, DPW, I mean, we have a little bit of reallocation, but I would like to also have, you know, if we have the money already in the budget to help fund some of the study that we need to do.
Yeah, we need to do this.
Well, that could be the 26.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna
And then
do.
the 63,
It's coming out
it's coming out, so
completely.
that's a whole point, so that will reduce.
89.
What?
He's gotta put it into,
I'm taking the 63 out completely, so right now we'll have close to a flat budget, but we're not done yet.
Okay.
Okay, so the 26 I'm leaving in, I'll start working with Suburban to see if they can give me an engineering estimate to do the study on the pool and also the field, right? So, because they were gonna do that already, so, you know, we're still working through this, obviously, but that's kind of the direction I think we're going in. But Dawn had one other thing.
Okay, when you took out the CIF of the 55,000 for record.
Planning.
Planning, thank you.
Planning.
My recommendation is to put it in the first line item of the capital section. Several reasons.
What
One.
page are you at?
Okay, let's go to 49.
No, 49. I know where the CIF is coming out from, but, okay. Yeah.
Currently, the proposed amount is 30,000.
Correct.
As you can see, that's a low amount. That amount gets paid over to the capital fund, where it sits. So it only gets expended if it's used. That amount is used to fund any ordinance you want to do. When you do a general capital ordinance, you need 5% down. You can also use it to fully fund an ordinance. So if you move that 55 over there, it will sit until you need it for a capital purpose. I think it'll be very
But once it's
unilateral.
reallocated there, it's capital, can it only be used for capital? If there's something, some other expenditure that comes up, can it be reallocated again?
It can only be used for a capital purpose, 5-year useful life.
So would you recommend that you do the whole amount or a part?
Well, isn't the other option, for the stormwater, that's 40, you just put it towards that?
You could.
Just do that.
That's what I'm saying.
You know what I'm saying? Rather than.
Definitely.
Yeah, because I don't want to.
Rather, you know, rather than.
As soon as found it, I don't want to lock it into.
You mean take one of those items that.
Yeah.
that-
Or put it towards the skid steer or whatever, you know?
I think take it out of that maintenance item that we had in the CIF, which we said this really shouldn't be in.
You have the
Pipes
skid,
and stormwater.
yeah, just put it towards that.
maintenance, like you said, and then that comes out and goes into.
pay cash instead of borrowing money.
Fully fund the $40,000 pipe stormwater.
Right.
That reduces capital.
But that, it reduces capital, which means we're not financing it. But then there's still a net 15.
Net 15, just put towards the CIF, because there's always gonna be something that we need.
And it's good
That
to
feels
build
better
that
to
up.
me.
Okay.
Done.
Rather than the whole amount.
Okay, thank you. We're on page 10.
No, agreed. We just talked about trying to.
Dawn, that's good, right?
that.
That's good? Okay. All right, page 10, water sewer revenues.
Look at us just blowing up this budget this year.
Having fun. Isn't it good?
Rocking and rolling.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. Welcome, Joe Carr. How are you? Good. All right, who's taking us through the levy comparisons?
Well, we kept the, we kept the budget flat, so it's 4.525. We've already talked about fund balance when Tom was here, so I don't think there's really too much on this page necessarily, but I didn't want to neglect it.
No, I think, again, the trend line's increasing the fund balance, good business practice. If you take, the 10% figure that Tom told us, we're
Yeah.
above, but we also know that we're looking at some expenditures coming down, so.
Yeah, and if you want to flesh it out further, go to page 52, which is the 2019 revenue budget, water, sewer, utility. Shows the revenues up top, the miscellaneous revenues, and like I said, the budget is flat year over year, so it's a good budget.
How is the surplus different from the fund balance? Or is it not?
Same.
Part of it?
Surplus.
There's something else.
No, surplus anticipated is from the fund balance.
So we're anticipating some additional connections this year, depending on the redevelopment plans. Maybe not this year, though.
No, we didn't put that in the 2019 proposed. I'd rather not budget on the back of assumptions on the connection fees,
Right.
but when they come, they're certainly helpful.
But we anticipate there may be some. We just can't budget them.
There will be,
Yeah.
but I
Right,
don't
because
want
of
to.
development projects. No,
Yeah,
no, I agree.
there will be. I don't
We
wanna-
wanna
Well,
budget
somebody
them, but-
requested 55,000, but you chopped it down to basically nothing.
No, we split it. That was just a placeholder.
Yeah.
See how it's allocated in the last column? Yeah. Yeah, so when we do the budget, sometimes health insurance, we're putting big numbers in and then we break them down before it gets to the proposed column, so. But in general, it's a steady budget.
So additional connections for the fund balance.
Just so you know, when we get connections throughout the year, we post it to this account. Prior to year end, Tom and I discuss how much is needed to keep this budget level and how much we can reserve. And then what I usually do is do a journal entry, like if we have a big one like Margarano or somebody, I'll do a big journal entry reserving it in another account that you can then use to fund a capital ordinance. So by not anticipating them now, because it's not a certain thing,
True.
we address them prior to year end when we close out, and then we reserve them, and we use.
Yeah,
it
I'm
for
just thinking, it's been a couple years since we've had some. We might have some this year, so I'm just thinking forward to next year's appropriations.
Well, we had connection payments from RPM, we had connection payments from Martirana. This year, there's still another phase of Martirana. You'll have the Boulers building when that's, so yeah, there's still some nice things coming.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'd rather not anticipate them just to be conservative.
Agreed.
So, all right, we could jump to 53. The other side of the equation, expenditures.
Why was there such a decrease in the regular salaries? I mean, I see what's charged, I see what's requested, and I see what's proposed.
No, increase, not decrease.
Yeah, I should say increase. The proposal, though, is less than the requested.
Just every year, we always go through the staff and reallocate based on workload and who's still here, who's retired, who's been added to, and Jen does kind of the first wave with myself and Adam and then Dawn. So we always look at how we're allocating between the current and the water sewer accounts.
So
So it's not necessarily additional staffing per se, it's just the allocation we always review. annually.
So the 30,000 between the 2018 final budget and 2018 charge, is that because we had somebody out or retirement?
You talking about the increase?
Oh, that's what you
No.
said. That's what you're talking about. We had workers' comp that gets reimbursed back to the budget line items.
Okay. I was remembering that I thought we had somebody out on injury, that's why.
Mm.
Okay. So Joe, here's an opportunity to just have a conversation about how things are going operationally, staffing wise. I mean, I know we're gonna have a bigger conversation about, projects and some upcoming expenditures, but, based on what has been requested in the budget, how's everything going? What do you,
So,
operationally last year?
We need to get that done.
We talked earlier, we have some guys that are gonna be doing additional training, I mean, on the DPW side, but, overall,
These will start winter class, I think, in September. And Joe White is sitting for his S2 beginning next month. It's going well.
Page 54.
So I recall a conversation a couple of months ago just about chemicals, chemical prices. Any follow-up to any of that? I think we were looking at getting chemicals from a different provider, if I remember
When
correctly.
the bids went out, it was point, last time we did bids for chemicals was 2 years ago. I think we dropped the ball a little bit on the whole bid process, and we were paying a lot more to Coin.
Okay.
People bid this time, and we got the majority of the chemicals, and we're much more price than we did pay the last 2 years, so I think that's
Yeah.
sort of everybody else.
Okay. I knew there was
How is the
something.
project going, testing the water at all these different locations? Is that a discussion for Friday?
Yeah, we'll wait till we get into the
Yeah, because I also want to know when we first when the state leads in
the meat. Yeah.
I only have one question on the consultant services. We were only charged, 24,000 in 2018, but we're budgeting 90,000. Is there a reason why we're budgeting that much?
You know, keep the problem with,
Yeah, I mean that's the number we keep in every year based on
Just in case.
on the flow of things.
Well, that would include, I'm assuming, a lot of the water testing, obviously.
And this is consultant.
Well, we budget the 90 every year, and then it just kind of depends on what we have going on, right?
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else on 54? Most of it's pretty much the same. But page 55. Bless you.
Thank you.
We put a little bit more on the lab services. That was really the only one, right, Joe? So, necessity. And 56. No major changes on 56 of large significance. We'll skip 57 because that's capital, so we'll get into that. 58, we've already talked about the debt, and then 59 is the last page. So, Dave, why don't you come up? We're going to start on Morris Lake, and then we'll do sewer last. So, I've got some handouts here for you. And Dave, I'm giving them your email.
You did?
I'm giving it to them now. All right, so that's from Dave. So maybe I can pull it up on the screen.
Basically, with the part up at the lake, we're talking about software and hardware for the most part. And I think it's fair to say, so what Joe and Adam think, it's one of those things where a lot of the equipment up there, believe it or not, is 10 to 15 years old. And for example, one of the things that I read through when I got the information from Joe on the proposals from Paul and from IT, which is now part of Pumping Services, for example, some of the computers were under the Windows Professional operating system, and Microsoft doesn't even support that or upgrade it anymore. So I look at this whole thing as very similar. I'll run a computer home till it won't run the software anymore, and you gotta buy a new one, which is what a lot of this boils down to. Plus, the other part that I took from this was a lot of the PLCs, the programmable logic controllers, are getting older, and it's not the type of equipment you can necessarily get off the shelf and plug in right away. You have to be somewhat proactive to avoid any situations like that. So I basically kind of summarized what the proposals that Joe has gotten, and just to go through them quick on the printout, on the fall side, again, I said it's about 14 years old, bringing the hardware up to date, updating the software, and making it compatible with Pumping Services, which brought out IT. We've done all the controls up there since the plant was built and put into operation around 2004, I believe it was. So you're dealing with the people that know the system up there. And for the Paul part, which is basically the filtration, you're looking at around $73,063.
Who did the system up there?
Paul has the microfiltration units themselves, and correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but their part goes with that system.
Yes.
The IT system controls everything from, say, the raw water pump ball into the ball system and all the other information that they monitor the system with. It's all integrated that way. Then when we get down to Pumping Services upgrades to the SCADA system, the first quote covers spare parts for the existing PLCs at the high-speed booster pump station, which is about 21 years old. Historically, just to put in perspective for everybody, the way the system was upgraded starting back in the mid to late 90s, before the filtration plant was built, the town had the 2 million gallon storage tank up by the ice skating pond on High Street constructed, and that brick building next to it, which is the pump station for the high pressure district, the hospital and that part of town. The reason that was done was because the state was up and said, well, if we don't have a contained closed system for the finished water, what's the sense in filtering into the reservoir if it's only going to be an open reservoir, formerly the High Street reservoir. So that was built first. That's why that's older than the rest of the system. So that's tied to sensors, I believe, over at the hospital and a couple other places. And that's why that's older than the rest of the system.
Would you be able to send us over at some point in time, I'm sure you have it, a PDF map of the water distribution network? Do we have such a thing or no?
We absolutely do.
Okay. I'd
Absolutely.
like to see that. I'd like to have it on easy access to Tom and everybody here on computers, just, PDF version, snapshot, just to look at the schematic of the system.
And that's not a problem. As a matter of fact, we've taken some of that mapping over the years, and you have your system that you use in the field. What's the name of that fellow? Yeah, they can bring up and zoom in and scope around on the maps. And what we've tried to do over time, if, for example, a new water main was put down Merriam Avenue before, and we update that information, then we can send to the company that handles that for the town, and they can update the mapping in that system. That way, when they're out in the field, they can zoom in just like an AutoCAD drawing and get a pretty good idea of where
Yeah,
it is.
that's great for them, for.
You want the PDF.
I just
I mean,
want
we
like-
added that technology, what, 3 years? 2?
This will be year 3.
Right, okay.
So, absolutely, we
Yeah.
can do that. No problem. So, the first quote for $16,351 and change, that's at the High Street Booster Pump Station. That's got its own sensors that, in the station itself, have variable speed pumps, and is, in the middle of the night, if you will, probably never gets to this very often, but if there's no water being used, the pumps don't run or run minimally, and then as people wake up and use more water, those pumps kick in and speed up to keep the pressure in the high pressure district. That's what that's for. On page 2, the first quote, this quote is for an upgrade to the existing raw water booster pump station at Morris Lake. for automatic switchover if the primary pump fails, and also to control the 3 pumps better up in that area for about $12,750. If you recall, you've got the dam at Morris Lake, you've got the filtration plant over here, and in the middle, there's that underground vault, that's the raw water pump vault. The reason that raw water pump vault was put in with the filtration plant is because originally the water out of Morris Lake used to be treated right in the gatehouse, and then in the bottom of the gatehouse, it would flow by gravity to the town, all of the people in the town of Newton. But once you put the filtration plant in, you had to have that raw water pump vault in order to lift the water up into the filtration plant and start it through the system. Once it goes through the filtration part, it drops down into the clear well, and then it runs by gravity to Newton. So this is some additional upgrades to control that area as well. And the second quote down there, that's for spare parts for the PLCs at the Morris Lake filtration plant, which again are about 15 years old, based on putting the plant in service around 2004. That's for $61,926 and change. The next quote for $12,000, this would take the replacement PLC spare parts, and it's actually installed in the filtration plant. The work includes replacing the existing processes, which are over 10 years old now, perform configuration changes, startup and testing. They'd be tested for accuracy, operation and maintenance manuals, and program files would be updated. Basically, my understanding is when they put some of this new hardware in, it's like anything else. There's some software that has to go in to make it operational with the equipment that you've got at the time. So it's an upgrade that way. The last item on page 2, this is from pumping services for budget purposes. The existing filtration plant SCADA computers are old and should be upgraded. As we said before, they don't use Windows Professional anymore. They're no longer available. User support contracts are also needed for upgraded systems. The proposal would include 3 new computers, setting up the SCADA system, installing the testing software, and verifying operation of the entire system. It's one of those things where, I hate to say this, but with my own computers at home, I went to turn it on one day and all of a sudden it just went bang. That was it. And she wrote no more. So I think what they're basically saying here before you got to get to that situation, get some upgraded software, get some upgraded hardware. So that's just an academic conversation that never happened.
I had that happen on my work computer this year on like a 3-year-old computer. Hard drive.
So David, first of all, thank you for being here on Saturday morning and for your continued consultants services throughout the year. And we always say that I hope that someone is photographing your memory, because you have, I think, more historical data in your mind than any of us have on paper or files or anywhere else. So I'm sure you color your hair gray, but you'll be around for the next 30 years, I'm anticipating, right? Okay. Having said that, so what you just presented are really the last 2 items on the capital improvement project sheet, right? The 75 and the 150. I'm assuming that even though you broke this down, this is not a menu that we can pick and choose from, that most of these sound like they're fully integrated, like one kind of depends on the other and relies on the other. Is that correct?
Yes.
But for our edification, you kind of broke it down to explain what the different
I kind of
individual
want to give
costs
you a
are.
picture which component of the water system it went with,
Okay.
just to give you a little help along those lines.
So I'm seeing the team nod their heads, so everybody's in agreement that these are necessary at this time and have lived their useful life. All the equipment has used its useful life, and we've done what we can in terms of being able to use them further. Questions from the council?
I want to make a suggestion. I think we've briefly talked about this, but I don't think a lot of people in the town of Newton know where the water comes from. And I think that we should host a field trip and a tutorial open house on the water system open to the residents of Newton on a Saturday in the springtime. And members of the council will attend, water and sewer department, and really I think that you should lead basically an informational session about where your water comes from. I think you'd probably be able to get 30 or 40 people. I think we have this extremely state-of-the-art water system at this beautiful reservoir, And I would
Definitely.
just put it out there and see who wants to come. If it's a success, great.
I like that idea because as being brand new and somebody who just went up there and toured it very recently, it was completely eye-opening to me about where the water comes from and everything that we have up there.
Yeah.
So, I 100% think
I
that's a
also
great
think
idea.
coming off of a year where we've had, not because of anything that's gone wrong, but some negative publicity, press, some ramifications as a result of what's come up with testing, that this is I mean, we said back in July when we kind of reconstituted that we wanted to do as much as positive PR and press and getting people involved and understand as much as possible, wanted to be a little more transparent, so I agree that I think it's an opportunity. I mean, not to mention the fact that it's such a beautiful facility. I mean, you know, the bald eagles that are up there and just the lake and how pristine and beautiful it is, and, you know, the opportunity for residents to be able to get a one-day pass up there. I can't, 99% of the people I talk to don't even know about that opportunity, so.
Yeah, I mean, and we'll keep it to the water side, not the sewer. I mean, you know, it's really interesting. Just, you know, the water side.
No offense, Fred. Yeah, so we'll look at a date. Dave, you and I will coordinate a date in the summer, and we'll.
I've always loved the history. Notice I didn't go back 100 years this morning. But I've always loved the history of the water system, and many, many years ago, I was privileged to work with Harold Beaver, God rest his soul, when he was here, and he told me a lot of information over the years, and a lot of people come in the water and sewer department, and it's just a really neat thing that the county
Yeah, I think that
really
it's a
is.
benefit that the residents might want to learn a little bit more
Yeah.
about it. So,
Good. Good.
Absolutely, no problem.
Yeah, and if there's a way to I mean, there's gotta be a group at the high school that would be interested.
Oh, I'm sure. High school,
That, you know, at the same time, having the students out
get
there.
our green infrastructure friends, Louise, and yeah, we could have some fun.
Yeah.
Do a nice Saturday open house type thing. Yeah, why not?
We did do something up there years ago, and when the kids came up, sometimes they were a little bashful as far as asking questions. So I got this from one of the New Jersey Water Association meetings I went to. I said, okay, everybody that asks a question, you get a ticket. And at the end of that, withdraw a ticket, you get this super soaker gun. All of a sudden, there were hands up all over.
Yeah, right. Everybody had a question there.
Or a tray of Sandy's brownies. So other questions about, I mean, these, you know, you're talking about $225,000 in the last two line items.
I'm all okay with our professionals' recommendation for this upgrade, which hasn't happened in a while, because finally it's necessary, so. The cost of operating the system, which comes with this large ticket item, so.
Okay.
All right, Dave, can you stick around for a few more minutes, and then
Sure.
for the Fred portion? All right, here's the Fred portion of our program. Fred, come on up. So what I asked Fred to do is your first page, which we'll go over, is actually an item that's already been budgeted, but I just to give you a status update on the grit collector project, and I'll put it on the screen. And then next page is the pump station, which we've already discussed, but there's a little narrative on that. Third one is the sludge digester. Fourth one is sludge pump replacement. So Fred, it's all yours.
Welcome, Fred. Thanks for being here on a Saturday.
My pleasure. Believe me, I very much appreciate the opportunity that the town's given me and do our best to make sure we live up to that. First thing I wanted to touch base on was the replacement of the grit collector system. This is a piece of equipment that goes back to the renovation of the plant that took place in the late 80s, early 90s. It's one of the more basic, one of the more important pieces of equipment in the plant, in that it takes out all the abrasives before it gets into the equipment and causes a lot of excess wear. So, piece of equipment is nearly 30 years old. It had been budgeted in the 2018 budget to be replaced, and based on the authorization that we received from the board a couple of weeks ago, we actually have started preparing the plan and specifications to go out to bid. My schedule at this point is to be in a position to go out to bid before the summer, so that we will have this particular piece of equipment replaced during the summer.
So Fred or Tom or Dawn, just remind me of what
think we budgeted
Yeah,
four,
allocated
450?
budget.
Was it
Okay.
450? I
Yeah,
think so.
you sent an email that there was some
Yep.
component of it that you thought might be necessary but not as necessary.
The way the capital plan was written is that it included the base collector, grid collector, which is what you have now, but made a recommendation to add a washer and classifier. So the way I intend to prepare the bid document is I will list that as an optional piece of equipment. That way, depending on how the bids come in, you have the option to add that or not. The benefit of the washer classifier is that it helps really clean all of the organic material out of the grid. This reduces odors, makes it easier to dispose of it, and then better to handle it for the operator.
And the grid gets disposed of as solid waste. Yes, that's right.
So we had budget, I'm sorry, go ahead. Ben.
Physically, how is the grid removed? Gravity, screening?
Conveyor.
Oh, it's conveyor.
It'll get dropped into a dumpster, but essentially there's a conveyor that connected to
But
the
how, and how does it initially take it out of the high velocity inflows? Settling?
You've got to,
Yeah.
you settle it, you also have it aerate the wastewater right in the same area that the buckets are gonna go through. And that slows the thing down to settle out all the solids before it goes to the primary tanks.
It's the first chamber basically to come into this plant. And the idea, the theory behind it is you design the tank so that the velocity of the wastewater coming in is slower than the velocity you need to carry the sediment. So as it slows down, basically everything drops out. And then the grit is collected to one of the ends, is then processed up through this piece of equipment, and then is cleaned, and then put into a dumpster or drums, and depending on how you have it set.
So we had previously allocated or budgeted 450. You're projecting that we're looking at 340 plus a possible 70 for the washer classifier, written differently in
These are
specs.
numbers right out of the capital plan. I'm working with the equipment vendor right now. We're looking at doing an in-kind replacement so that it's, same vendor, same piece of equipment, in order to minimize any additional costs. So once I get to the point where I have a conceptual design in place, I can update that cost and make sure it's.
But projecting right now possibly about a 410, which is under budget.
This is
but
going out to
allocation.
bid. This is going out to bid.
Yes, it will go.
Okay.
All right, so that's, now we'll move forward. All right, pump station replacement,
Big price tag.
we discussed, but
Pump station. This is probably one of the more critical projects that the town should really consider doing. The Swett Avenue pump station takes in about half of the flow for the entire town, as you know. The condition of the pump station is less than ideal. I don't know
At best.
if you've had a chance to look at the photos or visit
Mhm.
the facility, but it is, to say it's on its last leg is an understatement.
There was a presentation in the fall by your predecessors showing us some pictures and
Mhm.
video and describing the conditions. The
It's, seeing
not
it in
good
person
conditions.
is,
Sad.
it's a different story. Joe was
Mhm.
kind enough to take me through, and it was just very concerning.
Mhm.
So at this point, going to be working with Mount McDonald, since they have some prior history, and we're going to be putting in a joint proposal to do the design for the new pump station. We had a preliminary discussion with the folks at the New Jersey Infrastructure Bank, and I'm sure Tom shared that information with you. It's a way to finance the facility through the state revolving fund program. A couple of advantages of that is that they give you the option of anywhere between 20 and 30-year financing. Half of the project is funded at 0%, and half is funded at market rate based on the state's credit rating. So usually that works out to be about half of the overall market rate. So your interest rate is very, very good.
Sounds a lot better than USDA financing.
Yeah, and then the other big advantage that you have is that you can get 100% financing through them, so you don't have to have a 5% down payment as part of it as well.
But we already have some.
yeah, so the snapshot, if we take a pause, is that's kind of one option I want you to think about.
Mhm.
The other is what Dawn had put in the budget, which is the 300,000 over the 10 years to pay it off over the 10. You know, we've already budgeted 990, so we put another 2 million in the budget. So there's no right or wrong answer. It's just, do you want to spread it out and use the iBank, or do you want to be more aggressive and just blast through it financially? That, you know, or you want to leave it to Dawn and I to work with Fred and come up with what we think and just kind of go through it that way. But there's no right or wrong. It's just preference.
On a project like this?
Unfortunately, the state, there's so much demand on the New Jersey Infrastructure Bank that they have changed their debt forgiveness program. They are now limiting it only to green infrastructure projects within CSO communities. So it's a very, very, very narrow.
Because they were doing, they had a bigger, broader scope on their debt forgiveness early on.
Deal for everything. Yeah.
Right, and so those funds have kind of been eliminated now, and.
That's correct.
I mean, I think to say it's 100% necessary, but Mount McDonald they were going to design a very state-of-the-art pump station that, you know, really doesn't look like much above the ground, but it's got a lot going on underneath, and that's still the plan.
That's correct, yes.
Is there enough room there in this area to do this? Isn't it kind of constrained with space?
Well, they did the study with the soil study right next to it. Actually, for our old one, it's going to be directly actually behind that, in that area.
They have provided a conceptual design as part of the study that they presented, and everything fits. It's tight, but everything fits.
And Fred, now that you've had a chance to review what they proposed, are you in agreement with what they proposed?
Yeah, what they proposed, makes sense. It certainly is a very state-of-the-art system, but, I'm a firm believer in, do it once and do it right, so that your asset is there for, the next 30, 40 years. You don't want to be revisiting this in 10 years with other problems.
So Tom, I think to answer your question, I'd be interested to kind of see both scenarios, right? One, going through the bank and looking at that 20 to 30 and what are the long-term kind of financial implications versus we've, already reserved 990 of the 990.
Yeah.
And what do we do with that?
Versus what, traditional bonding?
Yeah, just kind of compare.
Through the ban process that we talked about. So Dawn, can you pull that
Where would
together?
you go?
I mean, we have the ban.
Okay,
If
I
they
have
can-
to have a 10-year projection on other additional projects to make it meaningful. If you're gonna go out and issue and hit the market and incur.
It's got to be
30,
between
40,
like 4 and 5
$50,000,
million, right?
Make it worth it.
Yeah.
On the other hand, for every, what did I figure, you could save 250,000 for every 5 years you reduce your term. That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And you could save 90,000 for every 500,000 less you issue. So that's huge. But again, I need to know what water sewer debt, there's been 2 master plans, and I need somebody to say what of those projects are still, what have been done, what are still needed, and map them out over 10 years, so we can say we need 1 million this year, 2 million next year, 3 million for the next 7 to 10 years.
Well, we have a little bit of that structure already because that was presented to us in
Yeah,
the
we have.
fall. So we could look at that, but then the question becomes, if at the balancing act, right? What's the tipping point to go out for a bigger
Yeah.
note versus a smaller, and that break-even point? Because then do you move up the timeline on some of those other projects to get them done earlier because you have a bigger?
I mean, it matters, like in 5 years, we need another big chunk, then we probably wanna, maybe we wanna go the iBank way. But if we can sustain within our $800,000 target and just have 1 or 2 years or reach that in 4 years, then I would say just issue grants.
Well, we need to replace RBCs at somewhat of a continuous schedule, right, from now until.
What I'll do is when I have my weekly call, we'll talk about it on Wednesday and we'll put some stuff together. So I'll hold the thought for now.
Okay.
All right. Anything else on pump? I think that's pretty much it on the pump station. We'll go to sludge digester. Yeah.
Same as with the rest of the equipment, right? The digester was, almost 30 years old at this point. Hasn't worked for a number of years, hasn't been in operation for a number of years. of the digester is to take the organic component from the sludge and metabolize that down so as to reduce volume and make the sludge, reduce the organic content of the sludge so it's more manageable from an odor point of view and from a handling point of view. So that has not been happening. So the advantage of doing this is that although you are spending capital monies, obviously, to bring the equipment back to operating condition, you will have the benefit of reducing the volume of sludge you dispose of on an annual basis. So this is one investment that actually has a return to it.
Right, because then we're not paying for and hauling out
As much.
as much, right?
On a typical digester, you can reduce about 70% of the organic material. Not the overall volume, but the organic material, just to give you an idea.
How many trucks do we do?
Depends on what time of year it is. I think you look, probably an average of it's 2 million gallons a year. So you know that comes to by month, probably over 200,000.
So it's daily?
8,000 gallon trucks. No, we usually get one a day, 4 days a week. That's when, in the spring, we have treatment filter and RPC. We have a change of season, we have a lot of sludge that we manufacture over the course of that month, and we take out a lot out of the sanitaries. That's something we're going to talk to Fred about, trying to reduce that, and anything we can do to be proactive in that. And that's, like, that was 565,000 in one month. In one day, in this last May.
So that would- this
right
would
there,
help
it's
reduce-
25% of your whole year in 1 month.
Right.
Basically.
That's why those companies that bid on that, like, they bid down to like, what, hundredth of a penny?
Yeah.
On the sludge?
Talking big numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're talking, they're running those trucks for not a lot of money, I bet, and they just do volume.
So how much additional reduction is possible?
It's 70 it's anticipated you would get, textbook numbers, 70% of the organic material is reduced. That'd be 25%, maybe 30% of the overall volume.
Significant.
So
Significant.
that's 500,000 off the 2 million
Right.
in a conservative estimate.
Yeah.
So the original digester was constructed in 1953 and renovated in 1990. What's the useful life on a new?
Normally, digester equipment, it's a very harsh environment, very corrosive, very abrasive. So normally, if you get 20, 25 years out of the digester, that's really good, and you're at 30. So,
Right.
It's
Well, 30 and it's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like it's a holding tank. That's all it is.
And then one of the other things that we're proposing as part of this is to make the change from what's called anaerobic to aerobic.
Mhm.
Oh, really?
Anaerobic digestion is basically it's an oxygen-deprived environment. The benefit of it is that you produce methane gas, which helps offset some of the operating costs of the plant.
But
The negative of it is that one, it's very temperature sensitive, and two, with the methane gas and the sulfide, it smells.
stinks, yeah.
So the aerobic is a much less odorous process. It will result in less, complaints, during the summertime in particular. And since you're sticking with a liquid sludge at this point, you're not looking to go to a cake. For here, it's a much better alternative.
Do we get a lot of odor complaints?
Not so much anymore.
When you're not running the digester.
Not running every step.
Yeah.
When we
Running
were-
aerobic
Yeah.
digester.
When we were?
Yeah.
Still, the problem is.
Rick's
that-
like,
An
yes.
anaerobic? So what do we, right now we have an anaerobic, right?
Yes,
And
which
we're
is
going-
not running.
Which is
And
not-
we're gonna go to an
Aerobic, which is an oxygen enhanced environment.
So when we were running the anaerobic digester, we were getting complaints.
Yeah, there was tons of, yeah.
Yeah.
And plus you have open tanks. Doesn't matter with the digestion or whether you're talking about the sludge, just the open raw sewage tanks up top, which is within 100 feet of the first house.
That's when we don't want to have an open house.
Not during the storm thing.
No.
In the summer, in the
We're
spring.
not going to
Sounds like-
You want to do that tour?
We're not doing
Do it in August. We're going to do it in August, that tour.
Yeah,
I always blame it on the Duncan Lafayette.
The dog days of August.
All right, and the next sludge pump replacement?
I guess connected with that,
Yeah.
the key items that need replacement at the plant as well as the primary sludge pump, which convey the sludge from the primary settling tanks to the digester. Since they are very much interrelated, actually maybe it should just be done as one project rather than two. And that also gives you the flexibility, brings the overall cost of the project to one, which gives you the opportunity to use the New Jersey benefit.
There you go, Dawn. There's the other money.
So I thought it'd be good to have an overview of the projects from Dave and Fred. But I
So
was
Fred,
just
I'm
saying,
gonna ask the same question I asked David. These are all intermingled, so, I mean, again, we presented them as individual projects, but the reality is they all need to be done
Well,
kind of
those-
simultaneously.
Those two should definitely be done together.
Mhm.
The pump station by far is the most important project, and I don't think it should be delayed at all.
No, I was like appalled to know about the conditions of, how you're going into open sewer and.
But, the plant's at that age, the plant is 30 years old. I mean, you're at that point where there's a lot of equipment that's gonna need to be replaced over the next several years. It's just the nature of owning that asset.
And Joe and Adam and Fred, how's everything going over the last couple months? Transfer of information's all been okay and good and,
Overall, at least on my end, I think it's been pretty good. I had a few hiccups in the beginning, but that's.
okay. Good. And at this point, you've already seen all the facilities and all of the equipment and, gotten
Joe
whatever.
was kind enough to give us the tour.
Okay, so what other historical information you need that you got, already and,
I think most of the stuff that I lead, at least at this point, I've got, and as we get into some specific projects down the line, there'll be pieces here and there, but right now, I think it's pretty
okay. Council questions for the team?
It's a lot of work to do. I mean, do you think a couple of these will get done this year?
The group system will definitely get done this year. Schedule-wise, the way I see things happening is the Sparta Avenue pump station will be designed and permitted this year. Depending on the funding mechanism you pick, by the end of the year, you may start, you have to refinance it yourself. You go to the New Jersey Infrastructure Bank. It'll be the early part of 2020 for construction to start, because they have their own review process that takes some time.
And it's a pretty long construction process, right?
I would say probably talking a year,
Oh, wow.
maybe overall, or something like that.
So we're talking going online
That's long for
2021.
something that's underground,
30 feet deep. I mean, you're talking,
deep excavation.
deep excavation, whenever you get involved with equipment, this is all custom stuff. It's not off-the-shelf equipment, so it is manufactured for you. So it's a lengthy process.
So we're looking at going online 2021. And-
They're pretty much the same schedule, maybe a few months behind.
The current pump station continues to run and construction or new construction is going on concurrently.
That's one of the advantages of using this type of layout, as the existing one stays in operation. You don't have to incur the additional cost of bypass pumping while the new construction is going on, and then you do a nighttime transition once everything is ready.
That's why I was asking, so we don't have to worry about, doing the bypass or any additional
There may be short
potential
term,
EDP.
just when we're doing the
Okay.
turnover from old to new.
Okay. And we don't anticipate any DEP complications.
We'll have to go through the permitting process.
Okay.
It is
But
what
it sounds
is.
better than having a bypass. I feel like the
Bypass is
D,
expensive.
of course it's expensive, but DEP tends to be more involved if you have to bypass or,
Only if they expect that.
okay.
There's all the difficult for us to bypass, but it's a long way to where it starts to gravity feed.
Matt, any questions? Thoughts? Got a checkbook somewhere?
This is a real interesting budget this year. I mean, there's just been lots of major changes that have occurred in the last.
Glad you liked
That's
it.
what I said to Tom when we came back from break. I was like,
No, but it is.
blown
There's a
away.
lot of
We
interesting
usually
things
don't.
going on.
We're usually like, okay.
No, this is,
Well,
and I'm trying to give you guys a lot of detail because I think it requires,
Cancer in the pool, that's a significant, because these capital items are huge and necessary.
yeah. And I think, you know, we have the right professionals involved between Dave and Fred and Harold and Corey and, you know, Mount McDonald's still involved. Like, it's a good team to help shepherd us through these because they are very significant.
But it's interesting, right? Because where our regular CIF is like not very big this year, and then all of a sudden, like water
Water
sewers,
sewer CIF is.
huge.
All right, so our takeaway is, you know, we'll move forward, but we'll work on a 10-year projection so Dawn can kind of
Mhm.
give you apples to apples. So we'll start that this week, and then we'll proceed accordingly.
Yeah. So right. So I think we're proceeding with writing some of the RFPs and specs and things around what the projects are going to be, and then on the financing side, looking at the two scenarios.
Yeah, and then what I'll need to do with both of you is to reach out to Sean, our QPA, because he needs to get on board now with bid specs and everything from his
I
end.
deal with Sean.
Yeah, so that'll be
I know how
the
it
next step.
Elsewhere.
Yeah, so,
And then, I mean, these are, just correct my memory if I'm wrong, but these are 4 of the projects over the 10-year project, but then at some point, do we need to just take another look at
no,
the-
that's what, yeah, I'm gonna do
the
that starting
10-year
this week.
checklist?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're starting with 19 as the entry point, but we're gonna go, even though we have a 6-year budget,
Right,
we're gonna,
would you-
we're gonna dig a little deeper and get a
Oh, yeah.
10-year, yeah, yeah.
Because what was presented to us was, you know, these are what we think we should do in 19, 20, 20, all the 10 years out. I think some of that's gonna be fluid now.
If we're doing permanent bonding, I mean.
Yeah, and some of it we've done already. And some of it we might be able to defer, and some we might need to bring up a year or two. So, no, it's a good time to do it.
I think a lot of the plant stuff that got pushed to the end is gonna need to be slid forward just because of the age of the
Yeah.
facility.
So we'll snapshot that for you. All right. Thanks, Fred. And Dave, thank you both.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Fred.
So that concludes water sewer. Thanks, guys.
I feel like we have a really, really good team, so thank you all for the work that you guys do every single day, and the guys that are coming up on the education spectrum, and, you know, I know that we've, you know, oh, the other thing that I was gonna ask is, do we have any updates from the state in terms of allocation, water allocation?
All right.
Yeah, 2 minutes.
For water allocation, just to bring everybody up to date, one of the key factors that had to get addressed was the hydrographic survey of Morris Lake. And if you'll recall, USGS came in and said they were looking for a couple places to do their study on a hydrographic survey in one of the reservoirs. Rob Hudgens down at DEP recommended Morris Lake. The price was exactly right, free, so that worked out really well. And one of the reasons why they wanted to do that, the New Jersey Geological Survey also came in with their equipment and followed up and piggybacked and did their own survey. And one of the reasons they did that was, if you look at USGS as the Cadillac survey, if you will, New Jersey Geological Survey came in with the Chevy Impala, which I drive, so what can I say? But the bottom line is they came in with that to see how close their survey was to the standard, if you will. And I got a hold of Rob Hudgens about a month or 2 ago, and he said they've got some preliminary data from the New Jersey Geologic Survey. The next thing we're going to do is figure out with pumping services how low we can actually get one of those pump systems in the gatehouse, and that'll determine the level that the state will look at as far as how much water allocation we can get. So that's in progress, and that's where that's at.
Okay, we just like those periodic updates, because
Yeah.
we're looking at some development, so.
Just
problem.
thinking ahead, if you actually have bathymetric survey information of lakes, you can get these, like, I've been seeing them online, get those really cool 3-dimensional maps made up. If you have this contour line information for like charted lakes, so you can like go to like Lake Champlain and order like a map of,
With Fisher.
the bathymetric map. It'd be cool to have a bathymetric map of Morris Lake.
Ultimately, my understanding is they're gonna provide us something like
Oh,
that.
they will, yeah.
Cool.
Thank you for the.
Thanks,
update.
Dave.
All right, everybody,
All
have a
right,
good
enjoy the
weekend.
weekend.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Yep. All right, Tom, that, I think, takes care of all the,
Yeah, we'll
Presentation.
make some updates and tweaks. I think we're budgeted out for today, but we'll get to work on our end with some of the changes that we discussed.
so just review timeline again. I mean, we really have a lot of changes and a lot of kind of little reworkings. I thought all good, all really good.
Yeah, no.
Changes and conversations, some tough decisions too. But so for timeline purposes,
We'll pull it all together. We're going to try to introduce end of February if we can, if not beginning of March.
Dawn's like, what do I have to do the rest of the
No,
month?
I did the reso with the February date, but like the state doesn't have
Yeah.
any documents.
No, and that's the issue too. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
even know when the
So,
budget.
we'll get our
the
stuff.
budget
We'll
is.
get as much on
Just
our
like
end
Tom,
done.
I've been waiting on a call back from the state for 3 or 4 days now, so I don't know if this was, I mean, in a way, I think we could pull it together by February 25th.
Yeah, we'll try. If not, we'll do the first meeting in
If
March.
not, the first, last year we did beginning of March.
Probably.
Well, as I said when Tom Ferry is here, I mean, we, of course, our hands are tied by the state in some respects, but we still continue to have to do business, right?
Right.
So we'll do what we need to do and then,
Well, I'll keep you posted.
continue
And we're
from there.
not we are self-exam, so it's not like we have to wait for the state to
Right.
review our budget.
Perfect.
So that should help us move it along quicker.
Okay.
So-
And then, Tom, any changes that we made, giving you time to kind of regroup with some of your
Yeah,
department
because we're going to
heads
need
and-
time to recalculate numbers and.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm not gonna be here on Monday.
Okay.
Okay. I'm
The
not gonna-
baby thing.
Can you dial in for the executive?
Yeah. No, actually.
No, okay.
And,
Just wasn't sure. All right, we'll make,
Okay.
okay. All right.
So-
That was the only item is we
And
have
everybody
the,
knows that we're starting at 6:30.
yeah, we have an executive at 6:30 to 7 and then the regular
And
meeting
did
at
Jason
7.
confirm?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I
Just
haven't
so-
heard from,
I might be, let me check it.
Yeah, just,
but I sent you all the agenda and.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Tom, anything else?
That's it for today, Mayor. Thank
Okay,
you.
so at this point, I'd like to open the meeting to the public for comments, questions, anything?
Well, you just open yourself up for, about me saying, Michael Malone, Trinity Street, right here in town. I'd like to add a little bit what Mr. Flynn said earlier about going through the water supply system. And I'm going to think that, does the high school or the college have a video? Any kind of video?
Like a club or?
Capability of
Hmm.
doing that, and maybe that they would do the same thing as a walkthrough
Hmm.
and put it on the website.
Yeah, that'd be kind of neat. Hmm.
Yeah, we could
People
invite, we could invite.
can't make it on a Saturday to see
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
that they could look at it on
Yeah, sure.
on the website.
Hmm.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
That is a really good idea.
That's a great idea.
Yeah,
That's
tour.
great idea.
Yeah, it's like a tour. Yeah.
The second thought I had was talking about the pool and the cracks over the years and the amount of water that's disappeared, softened the subsoil. I'm waiting for the pool to just slide off the side of the hill.
Yeah, having water run through the cracks
Mm.
underneath.
You know,
the
then
pool
it's
is-
getting into the subsoil.
Mm.
And maybe you've got a big mud pile in it.
Mm. Mm.
Let's hope not.
Well, I think to your point,
Mm.
by taking a step back and taking some time to really have an engineering assessment done, we can take a look at all of those, right? So everybody sees, these things like sinkholes and things like that, but I think we want to do a full assessment, which is why the council was
You did
really.
mention that, but
Yeah,
Right.
Just throwing that in as.
you're right.
Right, and
no,
I think that's why the
that's a
council
really-
You're
wants
right.
to kind of not do any more Band-Aids. I think we just want to really understand what's going on out there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good idea.
Thanks. Glad you were here.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for coming, thank you.
Neil Flannery, 154 Sparta Avenue. I just wanted to also say, with regards to the pool, I agree with shutting it down for this year and doing a comprehensive study, because long-term, and any projections as far as different business models have to be realistic, because we don't want to be continuing to throw money into a hole that's leaking. In fact, some of that leaking may be what's affecting the ball field as it runs downhill, causing some of the sinkage there. we have a lot of things we have to spend money on. The water and sewer obviously being big ticket items, which are necessities. And the pool, as nice as it is an amenity and not a necessity to the lifeblood of this town. So I would say that my gut feeling is that we should close it and repurpose the area, but I think that the prudent thing is to do a complete study of it so that we're on a good foundation
Yeah.
in the decision.
Yeah, I think we agree. I don't think we're at the point that we have enough data to just do a decision to shut it down, but I think with more information, then whatever decisions are made in the future, this council or others, at least it's based in fact, which I think is a much stronger position to come from.
Agreed.
Susan Murray, 154 Sparta Avenue. I have a question in regards to the pool. It seems that it was only a few years ago when the town was happily able to say they had done a big renovation there. So it seems like it's just the pool that's creating a major problem. And part of that renovation, I guess, was the bathhouse and the deck area.
The pavilion was a donation and a build-on and landscaping and a few other things that were done.
So all that seems to be okay. I'm assuming that the pool also there was work done on that at that time?
So it was more of maintenance and some patchwork, as you heard from the
And the
testimony, and drainage and some other things that had to be done. Making sure the slides were good and repainted and all those types of things were done.
I
But
remember all those good things.
I know.
And it's just, as someone who hasn't actually been at the pool in many years, I used to do memberships.
yeah.
But it was kind of a surprise to me, and I totally understand that it's actually a scary prospect as to the maintenance issues now with the pool.
Yeah.
And I agree with what one of the presenters said, and that is do it once and do it right.
Mhm.
So I would definitely endorse the idea of taking a break this year, seeing what's going on there, and then seeing what resources need to be dedicated to resolving the problem.
Oh, it is a beautiful facility, and Deb and others, the entire team. I mean, you go up there when the water's full and it's a beautiful day and the umbrellas are up and the concessions are open and people are having a great time. It is definitely a beautiful amenity. It's just when you get the water gets pulled out and all the all the flowers aren't blooming and all those kinds of things aren't happening is when you really find out what the issues are.
And the
Right?
repetition of the cracking.
Yeah.
There's some serious problems going on.
Right, there are serious problems, and there are problems that, and perhaps the last big renovation that was done is just, as I said, it was a surprise to me, but that might just be symptomatic to show that it really is a patch and seal kind of situation, put a Band-Aid on it, and that there are major issues that need to be addressed, so it's more than just doing a small project. The other thing I wanted to say was that I like your idea, Helen, of doing field trips with the students. That was.
Dan wanted to have the open house, and then I mentioned that if the students at the high school might be interested.
And Mr. Malone wants to
And then
videotape
Mr. Malone wants to videotape
it.
it. Yeah, it's a team effort.
It's a team effort and having the students get involved with
Yeah.
that. You probably already have thought of it. I know that at the high school there are environmental science classes.
There are.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then it might also be at the high school. I think, if memory serves, I think it's a middle school group that they have the acronym SAVE,
Mhm.
which I think stands for Students Against Violence to the Earth. So that just kind of came back to me when the idea of getting students involved was brought up. And another reason that I like it is not only for the education of the students, but when you get students involved and you have your camp followers, you get
Sure.
the
Parents.
involved, the
Yeah.
chaperones, and
Yeah.
it'll bring a lot more people in to see
It's gonna be
the
fun.
facilities.
And we even actually have a little environmental group at the elementary level, and there were some students around 3rd grade, 9, 10 years old that have been helping with the rain garden at Memory Park through some other presentations we've had earlier in the year to the council and we've done. So there are definitely students on the entire spectrum of grade levels that I think would be interested in learning more.
Right, but that just sort of came back to me when
Sure.
it was brought up about the high school.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you for being here today.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
New
you.
face in the hearings, for sure. Good. Any other council manager comments, Mr. Russo?
No, thank you.
Mr. Dixon?
Nope, just thank you for everybody coming. It was a lot to sit through. And thank you to all the professionals that came and made their presentations.
Absolutely. Councilman Bigelow?
Same thing as Matt, nothing more appreciating that they do, everything that they do.
Now the marathon's coming to an end. I think this is a good budget season, one of the more interesting ones we've gone through, and one of the strongest budgets in years, so.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Like I said Wednesday night when we started this, I love it. I love going through. I love having the conversations. I love the presentations, the interaction. I know, but I know a lot of work has gone into it beforehand, and that was clearly evident. And thank you all for being responsive to asking the questions that we ask on the spot. That often Dawn goes into her magic file over there, Tom's looking at the computer, Ginny's got the numbers in her head. Whatever the case may be, we appreciate that because we don't do it just to test you. We do it because I think we're genuinely interested and we like the data. So thank you all for the work that's already been done so far, and certainly there's more work to come out of this. So look forward to the final project, and if there is nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 12:42.
I will make the motion to adjourn at 12:42.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Diglio to adjourn and a second by Councilman Dixon. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.